Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmidt. Today, we're going to talk about a slight shift in perspective that can help you be a better leader, a better business owner, and get overall just better results. So I see this a lot of times in new leaders, but I most see it in small business owners or business owners who have grown it from nothing, and then now they're leading a team and expecting to get great results from their team. But sometimes they have something that gets in the way. And a lot of times it's a mindset, but I'm calling it a perspective shift. So the thing with this is it's that shifting from I'm the one who does the work versus I'm the one who leads others to do the work. And while it may sound really easy, it's like, oh, you just tell them to do the thing. It's very difficult for most of us to do, especially the new leader who's newly promoted into a leadership role, or a business owner who, again, like I said, this business is their baby. They created it from nothing. They have grown it. And in reality, they were the only one doing all the work for a very long time. So now they have to do something different because they will run themselves into the ground and they'll alienate everybody on their team and get subpar results if they don't do this. So I'm going to give you some perspective and kind of explain what it is I'm saying, and then give you some resources to use, and then give you, of course, some very practical things that you can implement and take away into your business, your team, your leadership role. So first of all, just to kind of give you a shift in perspective and maybe someone else's perspective on this, I first kind of grasped this concept. Like, first, I saw it in myself, number one, as a leader. But number two, I read it in the book, The E-Myth. So Michael Gerber, he wrote a book called E-Myth. I read E-Myth Revisited, so it's just got a little bit more updated information. But basically, that shift there is that most of us, or most people, will start businesses and they get into something because they love the thing that they do. So they love doing this, making this widget or whatever it might be. But then when they gain success and they get more successful, they still want to keep making the widget and doing the thing, and they forget to change their role. So he refers to it as the technician, and basically says there are three types of roles that every leader needs to have. So the roles are entrepreneur, manager, and technician. So the technician typically comes pretty easily to most small business owners because that's where they started. Like I said, with new leaders as well, because that's where they started. They were the doer. So that's the doing of the task that gets sold to the end customer. So that's your technician. Then you have your manager, who is that role where you're putting systems in place, you're checking and balancing, you're doing kind of that management task. So you might be looking at the finances, you might be, assigning tasks and roles, you might be creating processes, you might be doing like all of those things that you would typically say this is what a manager does. And then the last one is the role of the entrepreneur. And so if you think of what's an entrepreneur do, this entrepreneur has these grandiose ideas. They want to implement things kind of all over the place. Like, so they're thinking and wondering all of the time. So when we look at those three roles, what we'll actually see, for those who have been hanging around the podcast a while, what you might notice is it sounds a little bit like working genius levels, or really the stages of work. So if you think of the entrepreneur stage, that's that wondering and creation of something new. So that's the ideation stage that we talk about in our working geniuses that have the wonder and invention. So every leader needs to spend time there. So yes, that's very much time that we need to spend there. Number two, that manager role sounds a lot like activation because someone is making decisions, they're assigning tasks, they're getting other people moving, they're getting everything kind of rolling. So that is that discernment and galvanizing stage that we see in the working genius. And then finally, the technician, this is that implementation phase. So it's, jumping on board, grabbing hold of it, helping other people so that enablement genius and then that tenacity, finishing it out and getting it done. So again, every job is a 6-letter job, and every leader will need to spend time in all 6 geniuses. But that shift is actually going from being at that bottom level, the ET implementation phase, moving sometimes into the DG, that activation phase, and then making sure you spend time in that wonder, invention, ideation phase. So you might be asking, okay, wait a minute though. I've created the business. It's already rolling. Why do I need to spend time up there? The reason is because when we spend so much time doing all of the time, we don't even know if we're doing the right things. And this is where I see this happen a lot with the small business owners, particularly, is that they get so busy doing because ultimately, yes, they had the idea, they got it rolling, and they made the decision really is really what it was, but they got themselves rolling and maybe a couple of helpers along the way. But primarily they've been spending so much time in this implementation phase that they're doing, that they probably don't even remember the last time they, thought about, was this the right thing that I'm doing? Have I made the right decision? Have I made the right choice? And, let alone activated other people to do things around it. So we have to spend time periodically looking at our businesses, looking at our days, looking at our schedules, looking at our strategy and saying, is this the right thing? Is it working? So we can look at data for that. And is this where I should be doing, or do I need to make a turn somewhere, or make a slight adjustment, or do something a little bit different, or bring more people on, or grow or shrink or whatever? But you have to stop, pause, and look. And that's where a lot of new leaders, especially because they don't feel like they're being productive if they're just thinking, or they're just, looking at data, or they're just creating up new ideas. So they feel like they need to be doing something. So there will be a tendency for those of us who struggle or have some of those upper level geniuses in their frustrations. So there will be some of a struggle to make yourself do it because it's so much better to spend time in your geniuses, but we will have to make that shift. So what I want to do is give you a few practical things to take away and you can start working on or thinking about and implementing into your work. So the first, I'm going to call it a shift. It's a perspective shift, is that thinking is work. So I just defined this I showed you how every level and every role of that entrepreneur and of the leader is work. So if you remember from the working genius model, these are all types of work and where we like to spend our time. Thinking is work. Thinking is that WI ideation phase, and we need to spend time there. So when we have this I must be doing sort of mentality, we have to make that mindset shift into, okay, this is still work. It was work when we invented the business, and it's still work today. So we need to spend time there. So whether that is a scheduled time with yourself, scheduled time with some team members or key team members, scheduled time with the coach, it needs to be regularly scheduled and actually spent thinking about it. So sometimes it is easier if you struggle in those areas. It's easier to do it with other people because they're helping you think, and it almost feels like doing something, right? So it feels better, but it is a mindset thing. And as I've gone through before, all of our actions start in the brain. So if we can get that and you could call it an affirmation or whatever, but if we can get that mindset into our brains that thinking is work, then it will be easier to spend some time doing it. We won't feel like we're leaving people abandoned without us if we spend time working or spend time thinking instead of doing and making something. The second thing we need to think about or we need to implement is we need to change a perspective on who our customer is. When we've moved up and now we have a team, now we have people that have to do the work, our customer now changes. I mean, yes, ultimately there's still an end customer, and that is ultimately what you need to do. You need to keep happy ultimately. However, as a leader, your role is actually to serve the customer who is your team. So that might be a shift for some people, but ultimately as a leader, if we are doing our job to meet the needs of our team, then our team will then do a much better job to meet the needs of our customers. So when we change our perspective that my job is not to serve that end customer, my job is to serve my team, we're going to be treating our team better, number one. And number two, we're going to get better results from our team because people do better when their needs are met. But also, if you think about the fact that, okay, they have this job, if you're constantly skipping over them to do their job for them, or you're basically telling them you're not doing a good enough job and I'm going to do it for you. So they get very disgruntled. You can call it quiet quitting, but it's really disengagement. So it's been around a lot longer than quiet quitting has. But it's that why would I bother feeling that people will get when people will start to try to do their job for them? So keeping that in mind, that your customer is your team, not the end customer, will help you serve them better and will help you think differently about the work that you're doing. Then you'll start saying, oh, well, if my job is to serve my customer, then that is spending time with them one-on-one. That is making sure that they understand their role and that they're executing it well. That is making sure they know what they're doing and they have processes to follow and they have systems to work within. And we're thinking about those systems and setting goals and targets to make sure that they're working. So and thinking about the culture, thinking about what it is like to be a worker in your facility. Like those are all things that leaders need to be doing, and that helps serve their customer better. The third thing I want to do, or I want you to think about, is redefining your job. So I like to use this with a lot of clients and have them actually create their own job description. So many times, especially when we're kind of a ground up sort of business, we don't really think about what our role looks like. And if you really think through it, your role as a leader has many aspects to it. It used to probably be a lot of making the thing or doing the thing to serve the end customer, but now it's going to be different looking. It's important to redefine, okay, what are my roles in this? Just to give an example with my position and my work, in my business currently, there's me and I have someone helping small, like 10 hours a week to help me out with some of the things I'm not good at. So graphic design, editing these podcasts. There are one and a little bit of us, right? So I have to do a lot. I'm also obviously the technician. I'm the one serving the end clients as well. But if I don't spend time doing CEO things and making sure that I'm doing the right thing and have a direction for the year, the quarter, the month, whatever it might be, if I don't have those things in place, I'm just going to be willy-nilly trying to serve everybody. My VA is going to have a hard time knowing what to do, which she does sometimes, because sometimes I do struggle to spend those hours in that planning phase. When I don't spend time there and when I don't make sure I allot for that time, then we've run into issues. I'm not being the best leader that I can be, and I'm not having the best business that I could have. What I do from time to time is actually start carving out, like, okay, what are the roles that I should be doing? And what kind of percent should that look like for me? And that can help you figure out where you're spending your time through the week. You've got to spend, maybe 10% of the time is that CEO stuff, and 50% of the time is serving actual clients. And then another, can't do math today, another 30% is, doing outreach and, sales type roles. And then the leftover is making sure you're doing kind of those clean up the admin sort of stuff. I mean, you got to look at what makes sense, but you've got to spend time in each of those areas. So doing out an actual job description can be hugely helpful in actually redefining that role, because it can be easier to help yourself, but then it can also help your team start seeing, okay, this is what Kristina is doing, or this is what Sally has to do each day. That's why they're delegating this kind of task to me, because their role needs to change to this. And now this becomes my responsibility, which is just part of using delegation, but it will help clarify things. And the fourth thing that we need to do once we have this team and how we can grow out of it is start figuring out what it is that makes your business special. What makes it unique? What makes people want to come there? Because there's always going to be an element of you in that gets people excited or makes it come together. In order to feel like, or to not feel like you have to be in every aspect of your business and feel comfortable that people are doing it the way you want them to do it, you need to get that part out of your brain and get it out onto paper and embed it into your processes, embed it into your values, embed it into your training systems, because it's that thing that made your business so successful that now you have a team. And if you want to continue that thing, then you have to make sure that you hire people that are capable and willing to do that thing and that they know what that thing is. Perhaps you run a hotel and your thing is that you treat every person like their family. Okay, so that might be the thing. So what does that look like? That looks like greeting them by their first name. That looks like, being attentive to their needs. And that looks like showing them to their room and carrying their bags up and, getting them a cup of tea or something like that. But you have to define what that looks like for you, and then make sure everybody is trained on it, does it, and has the skills and attributes to be able to carry it out. If you've got somebody who is not comfortable doing that, then maybe they're not a good fit. So you've got to be able to boil that out to the team. Spending time thinking through, okay, what's that thing that makes it uniquely us, and somehow getting it embedded in. So whether it is, again, in your processes, in your training and onboarding systems, and you retrain and follow up, and it becomes very much just a job requirement for everybody, because that is the personality of the business. Those things will help you make that shift and will help you see and help you gain a better leadership perspective, which will ultimately make your team happier because they feel fulfilled, that they understand why things are the way they are, they understand what their role is, and you're not overstepping into their spaces. Because I know I struggle to do that. It's so easy to stay doing the things that you enjoy doing or you like doing, or the things that you thought made you successful, and to not let them go and let others do it. So when we can do these 4 things, it will help us be able to let go a little bit more and empower our team to be as successful as we want them to be and as we want our business to be. So again, if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend and a colleague and help them gain better perspective on their leadership and their ability to lead their team. And as always, leave a review, because that helps the algorithm to get more people involved and more people aware of this. Leave a comment if you're on YouTube. Let me know what you liked about it. Let me know what you're going to go do and implement and take away. And best of luck in all of it. If you want help, reach out, because so many times as a leader, we feel alone at the top, and it is so helpful to have a coach, to have someone you can trust to partner with, to help you through some of these things, because it's hard. It sounds easy. It's all in our brains somewhat, but it's hard to get it out of our heads and onto systems and onto paper and communicate it to others. So if you need help, reach out, book an appointment with me. We'll see what you need and where I can help and support you in your success. So I will see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmidt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.